Hello, and welcome to the New Yorkers for Parks webinar series, an opportunity for the NY4P outreach staff to share tools, resources, and research to our constituents on your own time. My name is Emily Walker, and I serve as the Director of Outreach and Programs.
And I am Woodland Desir. I am the Outreach Fellow for Great Parks.
Today's short webinar will focus on our ongoing advocacy campaign, Play Fair. We will introduce the Play Fair campaign, share our historic win for parks from this past spring, and give you some tips on how you and your organization can support NYC's parks, gardens, and open spaces through Play Fair. This webinar will last about 20 minutes.
The Play Fair campaign was born from a need for the city to stop neglecting our parks and open spaces and to finally make them a priority in the city budget.
You might not realize it, but parks represent 14% of the land in New York City. Despite this incredible statistic, for many years the amount of the city budget allocated to NYC parks to maintain, operate, and program our public open spaces has hovered at barely more than 0.5%. We think that's a staggering mismatch in funding. You can see here what the expense budget provides for. Think maintenance workers, gardeners, parks enforcement patrol officers, urban park rangers, and programming.
Here you can see how much money the city has allocated to the Parks and Recreation budget since 2007. As you can see, the city expense budget reduced the investment in parks beginning in the 2007 fiscal year, which is July 1st, 2006 through June 30th, 2007.
As recently as the 2019 fiscal year, the city expense budget allocated just 0.59% of the city's budget to parks. Again, this is barely more than 0.5% of the entire city operating budget for all agencies in NYC. And just to reiterate, NYC Parks is responsible for actively caring for and maintaining 14% of the city's land.
As you can see in the chart, however, we saw some improvement in the overall allocation of the city budget for parks for the 2020 fiscal year, which happens to be the fiscal year we are currently in the middle of. We went from 0.59% of the total budget to 0.63% of the entire budget. This might not seem like much, but for parks, it was a bright spot of improvement over decades of underinvestment. So how did we get there? In early 2019, the Playfair Coalition, which is now comprised of nearly 160 organizations across the 5 boroughs, came together to ask the city to invest an additional $100 million of the expense budget into parks. The Playfair Coalition was co-founded by New Yorkers for Parks, the New York League of Conservation Voters, and District Council 37, the Park Workers Union. The coalition has also garnered the support of a supermajority of the city council.
So what did our $100 million ask consist of? The Play Fair Coalition asked the city to baseline and make permanent 100 city park worker and 50 gardener positions that we had fought to have saved in the budget every year since 2014. These positions had never been made permanent, leaving 150 hardworking New Yorkers unsure if they would have jobs each year when the city's budget year ended.
We also asked for $4 million investment in the care and conservation of our natural forests and parks throughout the city. This funding will allow the city to do proactive maintenance, invasive species removal, planting of native trees and shrubs, and trail maintenance in some of our most unique open space assets, our natural forests.
We asked for $65 million to allow NYC Parks to hire full-time, dedicated staff who would be permanently stationed at parks and playgrounds throughout the city. Most parks rely on what are known as mobile crews of workers to do everyday maintenance and upkeep, but we think it would be transformative for NYC Parks to be able to hire what are known as fixed post crews that can work at the same park every day, all year long.
We asked for an unprecedented investment of over $8 million to allow for improvements at every single community garden in the city. This funding will allow gardens in need of new fences and sidewalks to receive those repairs, as well as the provisions of the tools and supplies that help enable community gardeners to do the incredible work of tending to New York City's network of over 550 gardens.
We asked for $4 million to expand the Kids in Motion program to all eligible playgrounds citywide. This program provides a free opportunity for NYC's children and families to have access to safe and free healthy programming for kids during the warmer months of the year.
Finally, we asked for $9 million to hire 80 additional park enforcement patrol officers and 50 urban park rangers.
So what did we get? We were successful in getting the 100 city park worker and 50 gardener positions finally made permanent, which was a huge win for our coalition. The City Council also added $31 million in new funding for a new batch of 100 city park workers and 50 gardeners, $4 million to conserve and care for our natural forests, $8.2 million to allow for improvements to all community gardens in the city, $3 million to hire 50 new urban park rangers, and we just want to note that there had previously only been 30 in the entire city of New York, and finally, $6 million to hire 80 new PEP officers.
While our coalition wasn't pushing for it, we were really thrilled to see that the city also restored nearly $3 million in funding to extend our public beach and pool season for a week past Labor Day and for tree stump removal.
While we didn't get all of the $100 million in funding that we had asked for, we did get a historic win of over $43 million to the city budget this past spring. All of our efforts that started this year are part of a larger multi-year campaign with a particular focus on the upcoming 2021 election. That will be an election where we will see candidates running for every level of local office in New York City, and we will also have a new mayor decided on that year. We view our efforts now as part of an effort to build momentum and awareness about parks and open spaces so that candidates running for office in 2021 can't ignore parks.
In 2019, we started with an ask of $100 million from the city's expense budget. Next year, we are going to keep pushing to get that $100 million investment and more. We all know that parks need significant investments into improving their infrastructure, as well as investing in more permanent full-time staff. This year, we will also be fighting for that as well.
2021 will be our next election year, so our goal is to keep pushing publicly and loudly about the budget for parks in these next 2 years, so that by the time the election campaign begins, candidates for mayor and city council seats will be unable to ignore the issue and will need to include parks and open space as a significant plank of their policy platforms. We'd focus our efforts in incorporating these asks to candidates as the campaign progresses through the primary and general elections.
In 2022, we'll have a brand new mayor and a number of new council members, and we will work to ensure that parks and open space policy and funding issues are meaningfully addressed in the next administration. The Play Fair Coalition is also keeping an eye out for the redistricting of the city council districts in 2022. This process will require that all council members elected in 2021 run again in 2023 for their seats.
Here is our most up-to-date list of the groups and organizations that make up the Play Fair Coalition, including our co-founders of the coalition, the New York League of Conservation Voters, District Council 37, and the New York City Council. As you can see, there are over 160 organizations in total in the coalition, which you can see listed here and online at playfair.nyc.
As you can see, members of the coalition take on many different forms, from block associations to citywide policy organizations to friends of park groups to unions. The only requirement to join is to love parks.
So, how can you help advance the goals of the Play Fair Coalition as we move into our second year? First, if you're interested in having your organization join the Play Fair Coalition, we'd love to have you. Just visit us at playfair.nyc and sign up today. As a coalition member, you may be asked to attend our fall Parks Peers meetings where we set the advocacy agenda for the next year of Play Fair. We rely on the feedback of our partners to help shape our advocacy goals. You might also be asked to sign and share our petitions to the mayor and city council, join us at our rallies that we hold throughout the budget season, and to come and testify about the importance of increased parks funding at city council hearings. And as well as coming in person, you're also welcome to send us written testimony that we can submit on your behalf, which NY4P is always happy to do for folks that can't make it in person to City Hall.
You can also send letters to City Hall when asked. We provide form letters for this. Call your city council members or help spread the word on your organization's social media account. We try to make supporting Play Fair as easy as walking through the park, but without the support of folks who love their parks and gardens, we would never have gotten our recent and historic $43 million investment in parks. We do not expect every organization to be able to do everything we listed above, but every action goes a long way to showing City Hall just how important and vital increased funding for park maintenance staff and improvements are.
Well, that wraps up our webinar on the Play Fair campaign. Thank you so much for joining us, and feel free to learn more about Play Fair and New Yorkers for Parks at ny4p.org and playfair.nyc.
Also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at NY4P for the latest news on Play Fair and New Yorkers for Parks. Thank you.